September 21st, 6:05 a.m. Personal log. Alex. Daniel showed up at dawn. Didn't knock. He was already standing on the porch when I opened the door. Jacket zipped to the chin. Compass dangling from his hand like a rosary.
Forecast says clear skies,
Daniel said. I nodded. We didn't need to say the rest. He brought his old field pack, the heavy canvas one he used to swear by. Inside, climbing rope, a flare gun, a filtered canteen, and his old Ranger Band radio. Slung over his shoulder was something new, a hunting rifle. Nothing fancy, bolt action, black finish, no scope. I gave him a look. That's not necessary. We're just recording data and leaving.
Habit doesn't mean I plan on using it.
We're going back. Not just to document the clearing this time, to follow it. 9:48 a.m. We reached mile marker 212 just before 10. The same trail, same trees, but nothing feels the same. The ridge leans sharper now. The frost is clinging in pockets where it should have already thawed. Daniel's compass won't settle. The needle ticks in slow, uncertain pulses.
This trail was flatter. I remember that much. Used to patrol it twice a week back in '09. It never curved like this, not until that fire in 2011. And even then, the slope stayed steady. I'd know if it shifted.
I said nothing. The readings on my analyzer showed the signal had shifted bands again. Still non-terrestrial, still structured, still rising. 11:03 a.m. We found the clearing, or something pretending to be it. There's no spiral, no scorch mark, no evidence of what I saw 3 days ago. Just a field of tall grass slicked in morning dew. Too neat, too uniform. Daniel crouched and ran his fingers through the grass, noting the dirt was warm to the touch. I scanned the area, and the drone feed blinked. Just for a second. A looped frame, like before. A high-angle shot of me standing perfectly still. But I wasn't. The drone hadn't taken off yet. 11:22 a.m. We began circling the perimeter. Daniel moved slow, deliberate, like he was tracking. I watched the analyzer. The signal wasn't just coming from above anymore. It was stronger at ground level. Then it dipped again. A hollow frequency, echoing like sonar through bedrock. Daniel called me over. He'd found a shallow depression beneath a patch of frost-killed moss. When we pulled it back, there was a gap, a narrow vertical slit in the earth about a meter wide. Root-wrapped, but breathing cold air. We exchanged a glance. He didn't speak, just unslung the rope. We anchored it to a nearby pine and dropped it down. The light didn't reach the bottom. I clipped the analyzer to my belt, locked the repeater to a backup signal burst, and followed him in. 11:37 a.m. The descent took longer than it should have. Maybe 20 feet? Maybe more. Hard to tell with the light playing tricks on the walls. The space below wasn't a cave. Not exactly. It was too smooth. The rock curved in impossible angles, as if melted into shape. Faint traces of soot lined the walls, and the roots, they didn't hang. They ran along the walls, woven tight, like cabling. Bioluminescent patches lit the space in pulses. Blue, then green, then off. Daniel whispered something behind me. Not words, just a sound. An exhale that wasn't his. We found the first object embedded in the wall near the far end. A rusted Ranger radio. Model from the late '90s, still intact, still warm. Under it, a cracked nameplate, half melted. I brushed off the ash. E. Lowell. Daniel stepped back. I heard him mutter something under his breath. This wasn't just where Eli vanished. It was where he was put. 11:50 a.m. The walls narrowed the deeper we went. What began as an open chamber now pressed in from both sides. The air thinned. My breath fogged with each step, though the analyzer showed the temperature rising. Daniel pointed out something glinting in the stone. I leaned closer. Circuitry, embedded directly into the rock, fused like fossilized wire. It looked like part of an old emergency beacon, but smaller, more complex. The signal strength surged. Not in spikes now, but steady. A single tone layered beneath everything else. My ears rang, but I felt it more than heard it. That's when the lights changed. The bioluminescence switched to red. A deep, pulsing hue like slow beating veins. No rhythm, no logic, just presence. Daniel raised the rifle, not aiming, just holding it tighter. I could tell he felt it too. Another object, this one lodged in the far wall, halfway buried. A recorder, same model as the one Eli left behind. I didn't touch it, just knelt, slowly, and scanned the surrounding wall. This time, the roots weren't interwoven. They were growing from it, as if the equipment itself had become part of the system. Behind us, something clicked. Not metal. Bone. We turned. Nothing there. But the pulse changed again, and the repeater on my belt lit up with a signal it wasn't tuned to receive. 12:02 p.m. I scanned it twice. The repeater wasn't malfunctioning. It was processing something new. Not just signal data. It was parsing structure, cadence, pitch, fragments of phrasing I'd tagged back in the lab during those late nights translating Eli's logs against the pulse pattern. I recognized some of it. The scanner was identifying a response, a loop stitched together from what we'd been sending. Not mimicry, recognition. Daniel shifted behind me, scanning the tunnel wall with the flashlight clipped to his collar. He stopped. There was writing, not etched, not burned, printed, thermal label text, like from an old punch tape machine, glued to the root-covered surface. RX Channel 07. Code redundant. We followed the line of roots from the label, deeper into the narrow corridor. The walls were beginning to change again, no longer stone, now some kind of smooth composite. Bone-white, but pliable under pressure. Synthetic. Organic. The signal was constant now. No breaks, no pulses. Just presence. And then the hallway turned. Not bent. Turned. Like the material had decided to change direction. We rounded the bend and found what we thought was another recorder. But this wasn't a device. It was a pod, semi-transparent, partially buried in the wall. Inside, something humanoid. Its skin was a pale, glassy gray, not smooth, but layered in translucent ridges like overlapping membranes. The arms were too long for its frame, almost reaching its knees while seated. Fingers tapered into fine points, 4 per hand, jointed in ways that made it difficult to tell whether it could bend forward or backward. Its head was tilted downward, chin nearly touching chest, like it had been in a long sleep. No visible eyes, just a faint cluster of darker texture where the face might have been. Breathing tubes? Sensory patches? I couldn't tell. There was no motion, no sound. And yet the repeater said otherwise. It wasn't moving. But the repeater said otherwise. Active connection detected. A low-frequency rumble passed through the walls. Not sound, not quite. Pressure, like the space itself had exhaled. The roots along the floor stiffened, retracted, then pulsed once in red. The pod's surface rippled. Not a crack, not a hatch. A shimmer, like heat distortion across the glass. Then a voice, my voice, echoed from the repeater. We're still receiving. But I didn't press anything. Daniel took a step back, his boot crunching over what looked like crumbled radio components. They weren't broken. They were melted, reshaped into symbols, spirals, arrows, recursive glyphs pointing back toward the pod. The repeater flared again. Signal accepted. Transmission loop confirmed. Then silence and movement. Inside the pod, the figure's head lifted, slowly, deliberately. It didn't open its eyes. It didn't have eyes, but I felt it look at me. Not through me, into me. Something pulsed in my skull, like pressure behind my eyes. And in that moment, I knew we hadn't just answered the signal. We'd completed the circuit. 12:09 p.m. The lights went out, and a new signal began. We couldn't see. Not in the traditional sense, but the walls began to glow from within, dull amber pulses beating in rhythm with the signal. It wasn't noise, it was language. I felt it more than heard it. The pod behind us hummed. I turned. The figure was gone. Not broken, not opened. Gone. And then we heard the second pod activate. Not from this chamber, from above. Daniel raised his light, sweeping across the walls. More recesses, more embedded glass, 3, then 6. Each one emptying, not explosively, but smoothly, deliberately. As if whatever we'd completed had always intended to multiply. The analyzer was failing. Too much interference. But one word blinked on the repeater before the battery gave out. Multiplying. Daniel whispered something under his breath. I couldn't tell if it was a prayer. I stood there, heart racing, frozen in that glow. And I realized we never cracked their code. They cracked ours. 12:41 p.m. Final log. We're back at the surface now. Barely. We didn't climb out. We ran. The hum followed us. Not just behind, through the walls, the air, the roots. At one point, halfway up the rope, Daniel froze. I thought he'd seen something. Maybe he had. But when I turned to look, I saw only dark shapes below. Too many limbs, not enough space. They didn't move fast, but they moved together, with purpose. One of them paused beneath the shaft, lifted its face, if you could call it that. No eyes, but it knew. It knew I was watching. Then it backed away, disappearing into the glow. We didn't speak until we were back above ground. Not out of panic, out of something colder. The clearing is still there, but the air feels different. Like pressure before a storm. Like anticipation. The repeater is dead now, but I can hear the signal in everything. The trees, the ground, the silence. Each signal we sent, each response, wasn't just communication. It was permission. I don't know what's truly down there, or what they want. But I don't think they're interested in being humanity's friend. I'm leaving this log behind, in case someone else answers.